Hello everybody, Michael here for Tactica Imperialis with episode 3 of Codex Analysis Orks. Today we'll be looking at the troop section as well as the sort of, I call it the dedicated transport section, but such a thing actually no longer exists. It's now in the fast attack section. But I think it's more prevalent to put it here as a transport than as a fast attack choice. So in today's video we'll be covering the Ork Boyz, the Gretchin, and the Trukk. So, if you've missed either episode 1 or episode 2, episode 1 especially because that covers the special rules, make sure to go and click the links in the description to watch those videos and just get ahead before coming back and watching this one. So, Ork Boyz. They are 60 points for 10, so they are 6 points a model. And a standard Ork Boy is weapon skill 4, ballistic skill 2, strength 3, toughness 4, 1 wound, initiative 2, 2 attacks, leadership 7, and a 6 up save, which is a real mishmash of stat line. So it's got the weapon skill and toughness of a Space Marine, more attacks than a Space Marine, but leadership of a Guardsman, strength of a Guardsman, the save of a Chaos Cultist, the ballistic skill of a Conscript, and the initiative of a Necron. It's a real mishmash of stuff, and it does mean Orks are relatively tanky, but that 6+ armor save means that toughness 4 doesn't actually count for all that much. If they make it to melee, they have 2 attacks, 3 on the charge, at weapon skill 4, and they do have the Furious Charge special rule, so they do hit a little bit harder. So you start with 10 Ork Boyz as your basic composition, and you can have up to 20 more, meaning that a full-size squad is 30 and will cost you 180 points. They are all equipped with a slugger and chopper, just like this guy. And they also have stick bombs. Stick bombs are basically frag grenades, so they don't give you initiative penalty when you charge into cover, and they can be lobbed as strength 3, AP 6, small blast, 8-inch range weapons. A slugger, for those of you who missed it, is a 12-inch range, strength 4, AP 6 pistol, and a chopper is just a close combat weapon, nothing special. They have the Here We Go special rule, meaning that they are slightly more likely to make it to melee. Furious Charge, so they hit at strength 4 on the charge, meaning that a standard Ork Boy, such as this guy, will hit with 4 strength 4 attacks on the charge at weapon skill 4, which is very, very powerful. Now, the problem with Orks is that low initiative, because in the past, Furious Charge, back in 5th edition, used to give +1 initiative as well as +1 strength, meaning Orks were going at the same time as Guardsmen and faster than things like Necrons. Now they're going behind Guardsmen and at the same time as Necrons, who in the case of models with things like War Scythes, can do an absolute ton of damage. Now, it's not crippling because you're still slower than Space Marines, which is probably the melee unit you're probably fighting, but against Tyranids, you are now slower than most of the Tyranid monstrous creatures, and that's a big issue. They may replace their sluggers with shooters for 1 point per model. This used to be a free swap, but they swap it for shooters, and the reason that I think it got more expensive is because you keep your chopper, but I don't know. So the shooter is 1 point upgrade, and it basically turns their gun into 18-inch, strength 4, AP 6, assault 2, but it is not a pistol, so it now is wielded in 2 hands. I don't have a shooter boy model on screen. The model at the back has a big shooter. And it's a decent upgrade, and it's the more common upgrade. Slugger boys are less common now because melee got nerfed in 6th edition, and it hasn't been redressed in 7th. Plus, single-shot weapons are not very good, and 2-shot weapons, even at BS2, is a damned improvement. The entire mob may take heavy armor for 4 points per model, making them 10 points each, but it gives them all a 4+ save, making them very resilient. Suddenly, bolter shells are only killing half of them instead of all of them that they wound, meaning that a Space Marine would require 2/3 and a half chance it gets through. 2 shots in every, I think it's 1 in 6 is a kill, roughly. 6 shots to kill an Ork Boy with a bolt gun, as long as he's wearing heavy armor. And that's really, 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 really good. Which means that a full Space Marine squad firing will only probably kill 2 dudes. I mean, that's 2 or 3, and that's really quite nice. I like that. And it used to be a 0-to-1 stipulation on heavy armor, not anymore, so everybody can wear heavy armor, which is a really good buff. If you need a Slugger Boy squad to cover a War Boss and a Shooter Boy squad to cover a big mech, they can both wear heavy armor. For every 10 models, one Ork Boy may replace their ranged weapon with a big shooter, like this guy at the back, for 5 points. That's a 36-inch, strength 5, AP 5, assault 3 weapon, which is really, really good because it gets around the low ballistic skill and it will just shred things like guardsmen and even pose a very minor threat to light vehicles. Or you can swap it for a rocket launcher, also for 5 points, which is basically a 24-inch crack missile, which you might think that's ridiculously cheap, but it's shorter range and it's BS2, which means that it's only going to hit probably once or twice per game, unless you get lucky, which sucks, really. Rocket launchers would be good if you could give certain boy things like Git Finders allow them to stay still and fire the rockets at BS3, but unfortunately that's not a thing. One other model may be upgraded to a boss knob for 10 points. Now his stat line, he gains +1 wound, +1 initiative, +1 attack, and +1 strength, meaning that he is weapon skill 4, BS2, strength 4, toughness 4, 2 wounds, initiative 3, 3 attacks, LD 7, 6 up save. And that's like having an extra boy in your squad, in theory. And if you make it to melee, you've got an actual competent character who can go out and win challenges. Problem, leadership 7. And this is because Orks have mob rule. If you haven't seen episode 1, you will not possibly know that I despise mob rule. I see it has pinches of value, but I despise it because it's awful in comparison to what it used to be. This 30-man squad, which used to be fearless, is now leadership 7. And that's awful. So the knob is kind of a mandatory upgrade for one particular reason, and that's because it changes you from failing mob rule half the time to a sixth of the time, assuming you've got a big enough squad and he's in there. Because if you're in melee, is only on a 1, breaking heads is a 2 to 3, which is where your knob comes in handy. 4 to 6 is when you've got a big squad. So kind of stipulating a big squad, I would suggest you go either up to the transport capacity of your vehicle, which is 12 in the case of a truck, or 20 in the case of a battle wagon, or you just max out and run a full foot horde. A full foot horde with heavy armor will cost you 300 points though. The boss knob may take range weapons or melee weapons, so we can take a big chopper, a power claw. I generally recommend power claws because they do a lot more damage, but getting 3 attacks in, 4 attacks in, strength 6 or 7, AP 5 is pretty good if you're facing anything that isn't a space marine. And you can get a twin link shooter, you can get yourself an inbuilt heavy flamer, which is a really nice thing on your shooter as a boss knob, which is 10 points, admittedly, but having a heavy flamer in your squad just before you hit melee, particularly against units in cover, can be absolutely crippling. And I like that a lot. What else can he do? He may take a boss pole for 5 points, basically allowing you to re-roll mob roll results to come down to breaking head. So if you roll a 1 and you're not in melee, you can re-roll and get it to something else. If you've got a 2 to 3, which is the one for a character, you cannot re-roll. So you can't like be in melee, fail, roll a 3 and think, oh, I really want that 1 because I don't have to take any casualties. No, you're stuck with that breaking heads result. Anything else you are free to re-roll though. So if it's a small squad, it's good. If it's not in melee, it's good. So it's better on shooter boys or small squads, but it is just generally useful. And the unit may take a truck as a dedicated transport. I am covering that in a bit. Your other troops are the Grots. Gretchin. They are 35 points for a squad of 10 with a runt herd. They are weapon skill 2, ballistic skill 3, strength toughness 2, 1 wound, initiative 2, 1 attack, leadership 5, and no save. That's awful. That's dire. So BS3 is their one redeeming feature. Everything else is appalling, which is fine because realistically they cost 3 points. A runt herd, by contrast, is basically an orc boy in terms of stat line. So 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 2, 7, t-shirt, 6 up save. The Gretchin have grot blasters, which are basically las pistols. So 12-inch range, strength 3 AP dash, assault 1, but they're not pistol. And they don't have a close combat weapon either. The runt herd has a slugger, stick bombs, and a gravistick, which is a melee weapon that reduces the number of attacks incoming on the unit. Gravistick. Strength user, melee, throttle. Whilst he's in a challenge, his opponent reduces their attacks characteristic by 1 to a minimum of 1. So if in some scenario your runt herd ends up in a challenge, he reduces the incoming attacks on him by 1. I have no reason to understand why that helps, because if Grots are in melee, they're dead. Simple as that. If Grots are in melee, they're dead. He also has stick bombs, so if you don't fancy shooting a slugger, you can throw a frag grenade if you like. He has Here We Go and Furious Charge, which is nice, so he can do a little bit of damage, but again, Grots in melee are dead. But the Grots have no special rules at all. They used to have a rule for minefields, but minefields no longer exist. You can have up to 20 Grots in the squad for 3 points each, meaning that a full-size squad of Grots alone would cost you 95 points for 1 runt herd, but for every 10 Grots you take, you must take a runt herd for 10 points, meaning that a full-size squad actually sets you back 115 points, which is quite an investment, although it costs just less than 20 boys, which is fine, and for 30-man bullet shield or 30-man objective blob, that's fine. Any runt herd may replace the grabber stick with a grot prod, which is, as far as it used to be, a 4+ poisoned melee weapon, or equivalent to 4+ poisoned. It just always wounded on 4+. Grot prod. High voltage. So it's changed. It's a user melee weapon, and it makes its close combat attack so you can instead choose to make a single high voltage attack. Roll to hit as normal, but resolve the attack at double strength for the purposes of that attack. So that would be at strength 6 or strength 8 if you're on the charge, but it's only 1 attack and it's still AP dash. So it's not great. It's an upgraded melee weapon which I see no point in taking because, well, you're never really going to use it. 1, you're low initiative. 2, you shouldn't be in melee anyway. And any runt herd may take a Squig Hound for 5 points. Now, these guys used to eat Grots when you failed morale checks. I will just check to see if they've changed. I don't think they have, but I will check nonetheless. Squig Hound. Every time a unit fails a morale check, it suffers D6 strength through AP nothing hits and then must re-roll. And if the re-roll is failed, it cannot be re-rolled, and the Squig Hound will not inflict any further hits. So you basically kill D6 Grots on a 3-up to re-roll a morale check, which, considering your leadership 7, you're probably going to need. And mob rule, you don't have it, so you can't use that. So you take a test at leadership 7, you fail, you take D6 strength through AP dash hits, you kill that many Grots, you re-roll it, you either pass and you're away, you fail and you run off. So it's nothing special, but it could be useful if you are objective camping, for example. That is when the Squig Hound is useful. I would recommend having 1 Squig Hound in the squad and then keeping that runt herd as far away as possible, particularly if you're taking big squads. But it's only really valuable in the bigger squads, because in small squads it doesn't really matter. Right, so that concludes the troop section. Boys are your mainstay, obviously, because an all-grot army, whilst hilarious, will be a pain to paint, and just do nothing, because grots suck. They just have 12-inch range pistols. Ork boys will be your mainstay. I recommend you probably run shooters over sluggers, because shooters do more damage, but I personally have a penchant for slugger squads. Big shooters I prefer to rocket launchers, and I prefer to put them in trucks if I'm not going large. If I am going large, then I'm going full large, by which I mean 30. Best used as character shelters, so great place to put big mechs with force fields, and really good places to put war bosses who have some sort of buff, such as, well, nothing actually. There are no buffs on war bosses, but they're a good place to keep characters alive, particularly like pain boys. Put them in there, 5+ feel no pain, really, really handy. So that's the troops, and now we'll move on to the transport, the Trukk. So, the dedicated transports. Now, as I said earlier, dedicated transports don't really exist anymore. There used to be a slot within codexes for dedicated transports, but they're now in the fast attack section. I don't understand why. I'm assuming it's so as you don't have to take a unit to take the vehicle, but I generally would always use them as dedicated transports, because otherwise they're eating into fast attack slots, which in a lot of armies you need. So the Trukk is the Orks' bread and butter transport. It's 30 points, and it's armor 10 all round, 3 hull points, and ballistic skill 2, fast, open-topped transport vehicle, which is terrible. Armor 10 all round, open-topped, like this thing is waiting to die. The moment you put it on the board, a squad of Space Marines could look at it and it's dead. A heavy bolter, don't even try. Assault cannon, forget about it. This thing dies really, really quickly. But it is fast, so if you get a turn to move, you can go quite a distance up the board, 12, 18 inches up the board, meaning that if your truck gets popped, you have got your orcs halfway across the board immediately. And because it's open topped, they take less damage, so when it blows up, if it blows up, it's only a strength 3 hit rather than strength 4, at least that's how it used to be. And, well, it's cheap, it's 30 points. You get 5 Boyz or a Trukk. I'll take a Trukk in a lot of cases. It has a big shooter. So the weapon I mentioned earlier, 36 inch, strength 5, AP 5, assault 3. Very good weapon. Restrictive in terms of what it can hunt, but don't expect it to live very long anyway. If you get a shot off, then great. But if you want to use your first turn, you might want to go flat out. And I don't know if that gives you a cover save like Turbo Boost does, but it might do. Because you cannot jink, you're not a skimmer. It has a transport capacity of 12 and the Ramshackle special rule. Roll a d6 every time a truck is penned, suffers a penetrating hit. On a 6, it is only glanced. This is basically irrelevant because you'll probably lose all your hull points in one go, or just be gunned down by lots of strength 4 and strength 5 and be glanced to death anyway. So I don't rate Ramshackle as a good thing. It could be fun and could be a real lifesaver if you get hit by a las cannon. But if a las cannon's targeting your truck, then it's wasting its shot. So it's okay, but nothing special. And it replaces its big shooter with a rocket launcher for free. Kind of like with Ork Boyz, the problem is Ballistic Skill 2, no way to buff that, which is a big issue. It may take items from the vehicle equipment list, which is a list I haven't actually covered before. So red paint job, 5 points, plus 1 inch to movement. At least that's what it used to be. Reinforced ram, 5 points. Stickbone trucker, 5 points. Extra armor, 10 points. Grot riggers, 10 points. Wrecking ball, 10 points. And boarding plank, 15 points. So let's go and have a look at all of them, just now I've got the points out of the way. Because this codex doesn't have the rules next to the points, they're at opposite ends of the codex. So, the hard case is not an option, that's for battle wagons. Boarding plank. If you disembark from an open top vehicle with a boarding plank and you charge, you add +2 to your charge list. It's basically allowing you to negate terrain, which is really, really good. So that's good, I like that, but it's 15 points. Death Roller. Death Roller on trucks? I don't think so. It used to be a Battle Wagon exclusive upgrade. I'd be surprised if it's a truck thing. Might have read it wrong. No, it's not a thing. That's for Battle Wagons only. Sorry, my bad. I'm an idiot. Feel free to unsubscribe for idiocy. Grot Riggers. It will not die. Yes. Red paint jobs only actually work on flat out now. Oh, I'm disappointed. Used to be all the time plus 1 inch movement. Reinforced ram. It can tank shock and ram, even though it's not a tank, and treats its front armor value as 2 higher when ramming. So when it actually runs into a vehicle, it's armor 12, and it's much less likely to die. Furthermore, may reroll failed dangerous terrain test kind of like a dozer blade. This is good. That's really nice. Especially because you can't afford to have your trucks getting immobilized. Stick bomb chucker. The vehicle is armed with stick bombs. Any unit disembarking from a vehicle with a stick bomb chucker is treated as having stick bombs. So it can lob grenades out of it. That's cool. And units that don't have stick bombs get them, basically. And I like that. That's cool. Wrecking ball, finally. 3 inch ranged weapon. 3. Strength 9, AP 4, assault D3. So it's basically a vehicle puncher. To just try and knock a hull point off a vehicle or two that you just run into. And I like that. So you could go ram into wrecking ball. And I like that. That's cool. That's a buff compared to what it used to be. And they're all pretty cheap, but bear in mind how cheap a truck itself is. That's still probably quite a big increase on the cost. Like you put a boarding plank on it, you're 1.5 times more expensive. You put boarding plank, a wrecking ball, and a stick bomb chucker on it, you've doubled its cost. In terms of upgrades, I would recommend red paint jobs if you're planning just to run for the line. Reinforced ram if you expect it to live or you're going through cover. Stick bomb chucker If you are using it as a transport for things that don't get them, then yes, but I don't know how many actually don't get them. Like maybe Mega Knobs don't, because Boyz get them. So maybe something like Burner Boy, or not Knobs, or Mega Knobs. There are a few units that don't get stick bombs, so that could be useful, and it's another weapon you can fire if you don't want to fire your big shooter or your rocket. Extra armor, downgrade, stun to shaken, pointless. Grot riggers, pointless. Wrecking ball, hilarious, but don't think it's that good. Boarding plank is good, but you've got to stay alive to get the value out of it. And that is the end of that. That is the dedicated transport section. And the troop section. I know I should probably have covered that in the fast attack, but I treat it better as a transport because that's what it's supposed to do. It has a capacity of 12, so if you want to put a 10-man boy squad, you can still attach a character to it, or 2 characters, so you can go 10-man squad, Pain Boy Warboss, or 10-man Nob squad, Pain Boy Warboss, which is probably the best combo for it. Or you can just drop in other stuff, and characters are not a problem. So, that is the end of this video. If you have enjoyed it, make sure to leave it a like rating, I would really appreciate it, and subscribe if you are new. Thank you for watching, my name is Michael for Tactica Imperialis, and I will see you all again.